Hello, this is Ron Lenth with Bremer Extension with Iowa State University. Today we'll be talking about gardening, and today we'll be giving you some ideas how to make this a great garden for you, regardless if it's both floral or vegetables, as the case may be. As we're talking today, first off, keep in mind, what does Iowa State University do for our individuals? We've been in business for over 100 years serving Iowans, and as you can we talk about economic development, food and economics, the environment, health and well-being, and the kids in K-12, which we've been known for since we started in the early 1900s. We're actually a land-grant university. A land grant brings the programs to the public, as we started back in the early 1900s. Here in this area, in Bremer County, we've been doing this since 1918. So what do we help Iowans with? Well, our major areas for extension are agriculture and natural resources, youth and 4-H, which have been our mainstays for many years, community and economic development, and human sciences. Human sciences, probably most of us knew that as home economics, which today ranges from everything from family finances to nutrition to family issues. So you could say we cover everything from corn to cows to continually growing 4-H, to cucumbers, to conifers, to communities for country and urban clients. So let's look at planting your garden this year. Depending upon which you're trying to work with, we can handle both vegetables and floral, and some people can certainly do both. So why do we really garden? Well, as we go through the COVID situation, outdoor healthy exercise makes a big difference. It's a real mentally relaxing and stress reduction project. It'll help you grow and share your own produce and flowers and help socialize with others that garden. In this case, trying to keep that 6-foot social distance. Plus an opportunity to educate kids where food comes from in the first place. And they're a STEM project. The science, technology, engineering, and mathematics for our young people, but also for the parents at the same time. And I'm betting you'll probably have some other ones yourself. When it comes down to getting started, there's really two options that you can use for gardening. Perhaps you have a conventional garden already that has been established, or you're looking to establish one. Or for those that have got limited land and capabilities, raised beds for a small lot or backyard work quite well. And we'll be talking more about these raised bed as we get into the program itself. These can be 4x4, 4x8, 4x12. The key thing is about 4 foot on the width. That allows easy access to both sides and certainly easier on knees and back. And you'll tend to find people probably work easier with raised beds. Well, let's get down to really what the key segments are. Well, first off, let's look at your soil condition. It starts with the soil. One of the nice things that we have available is compost here in Waverly through the city at the compost site there on the northwest side of town. You can also soil test. We have those kits available so you get an idea of the phosphorus, potassium, pH, and organic matter levels. One of the key things to watch out for is make sure if there's any walnuts nearby. They actually retard some fruits and vegetables, particularly tomatoes. Also look at the fertility on your house yard. Was this a long established house yard, or was one recently built where the quality might vary a lot, where a lot of the topsoil was underneath and lesser quality soil on the top? Well, again, what size do you have to deal with? You may have a lot at home that's available for your garden, or there are community plots available. Talk to the city of Waverly. There are several locations and plots available for families to rent that they're already prepared with water accessibility up on the northwest side and on the south side. Well, what size are we really looking at? And if we just want to do a couple of containers, you can put these in your window or out on a patio. There's different options that you can certainly do. Our daughter lives in Chicago on a high rise. She can actually garden on a little patio on the outside of her room there. One of the great things about it, you can grow your own food. And if you've ever eaten garden fresh vegetables, you know it's pretty habit forming. So you can certainly do this. Some of the things that are key needed, we were talking about earlier, one of those is sunlight. And one of the major factors is they need a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. And really, the more the better. So try to pick a nicely open area for your garden itself. Next area is seed selection. A good winter sower or late spring, as the case may be, because the catalogs start coming after the first of the year. And a word of advice, if you order ones, you'll end up getting lots of catalogs. I can always tell when it's about first of the year at our place, they start coming in pretty regularly. Keep in mind, the pictures always look perfect. Ours probably will maybe get close to that, but that's part of the program itself. The soil preparation is certainly important. Good healthy soil will have a lot of earthworms working through it. You'll see these large holes. It helps they digest the organic matter. They also aerate the soil with their dwelling, and also the castings they dig out on top of the soil. So that's always a good, clear sign of a healthy soil. A lot of us can use compost. We do this at the Waverly Community Sharing Garden. We get that from the city compost pile. Compost you can develop your own or have an access to it. One of the real major things is when you're ready to plant, first off, let's look at the seed packages themselves. It'll give you a lot of information as far as days to emerge, the seed depth, the placing, and also your row spacing. And then there may be some suggestions on thinning, plus the maturity from the time they emerge until they are ready for harvesting. So those are information right there. Read the instructions before you start planting. Now, if you want to start raising your own transplants, this is a picture from the back of my office right now. You can use a very simple homemade mini greenhouse, if you want to call it that. Some overhead lights like this. The shop lights work quite well. And then putting your seeds into your growing medium. Keep the lights on 8 to 12 hours a day and gets you an awfully good start. Begin these in late March, early April, so by mid-May they should be a big, strong, healthy plant. Well, things to keep in mind before you start planting is the average last frost date here in this part of the state of Iowa is about May 5th. So that means that's average, some above, some below. So typically what we do is we plant about the second weekend in May. So keep in mind, how many plants do you want and what varieties? Are your tools ready and sharpened? Are you looking for volume or just enough for home or some extra to share? You know, spacing is certainly important. So as we talked about reading the directions, in this case, don't overdo things. So spacing is certainly a key factor. Now, if you're talking floral, keep in mind if you're looking at cut florals or you're just something to view and enjoy during the summer itself. There's lots of varieties, lots of length of the season that you can have. You can have them growing all the way from late April with tulips to these, which are pictured, which is a Helianthus Snow Queen, which was actually the middle of September in our backyard. Well, keep in mind the other thing about flowers like this can also be a pollinator. So, for example, your butterflies, other insects, moths are certainly good pollinators to help improve the quality and volume of your production. In the background, you'll see one of the swamp milkweeds, Incarnado, which works real well in wet areas. Well, the thing we always hate to do most is the weeding. That's the work part. Raised beds are one of those ways to help prevent that by crowding the weeds out. If you're building these, some plastic over the soil and then the boxes on top, or you can just put the black soil down and then cut holes in them and then put your plants in those. Another option that some people have done is bale gardening. It's a little trickier. What you do is you get straw bales, you set them up on ends, say 3-4 of them, mix fertilizer, a 10-10-10 combination, and water it for about 2 weeks. This will get it started. It's only good for about 2 years. The first year, you can use regular plants for vegetable production. The second year, it's better for root crops like beets or carrots. What'll happen is the bale will heat, and after about this heating period, about 2 weeks, you can put your seeds or plants into the bale or the side itself. So when you're getting ready, you can either look at using seeds, or you can use transplants that you can pick up at most garden or nursery centers. Well, tomatoes are probably one of the more popular and heavily used plants that we work with, and certainly give us the most volume. There's two different styles, one they call determinate and the other one indeterminate. Determinate, these are ones when the plant's harvest is in a pretty short time period. And these are mostly used for people in the commercial industry where they want to harvest the entire crop at one time. The majority of homeowners get the indeterminate varieties because these will ripen over several weeks so you can enjoy fresh salsa, BLT sandwiches, etc. So the indeterminates for most people are probably the most practical. There's certainly some aids in planting. This is one we developed here in Waverly for planting onions. So this particular one is actually a 2x4 foot piece of plywood with 3-inch wooden pegs screwed into the board. And what happens, and you'll see the picture of it in the background here, we nickname it the Cyclone Stomper. It's these 50 pegs. So if you're in a 4x8 box, you will actually put this down 4 different times. So you can raise 200 onions in a 4x8 box. The other folks here in these 4x12 foot boxes, you can grow 300 onions right in that one 4x12 box. This group planted about 2,100 in about an hour and a half last year. Well, some of the other things that we have to put up with, unfortunately, are some pests, for example, like quackgrass. Quackgrass themselves are an exceptionally tough plant. If you're going to try to get after them early, you dig below them, pry them up, and pull the long roots out. The challenge with these long roots is if they break off, some of those will tend to grow back. So that's one you mechanically go after quite strongly. When it comes down to pest management, there's a concept called integrated pest management, where you use best practices first as far as cultural wise, and if all else fails, you can certainly resort to chemicals as another resort. When it comes to pests that are living, the ones we probably hate the most are Japanese beetles. We've had them now here in the area for about several years now, and they can be a major problem. They typically emerge in late June and run through early August. They begin life as a grub. This next slide here, we'll be talking about their life cycle. The life cycle begins, and really they're underground for the majority of the year as a grub until about mid to late June, and then through the first part of August. Then they'll lay their eggs and continue the life cycle itself. So trying to get rid of them is pretty tough. There's no miracle cure. On the mature adults, using 7 or 8 a couple times of the year certainly works well. They're voracious eaters. They'll eat over 300 different varieties of plants, trees, etc. They can fly up to a quarter mile or so, so treating the grubs gets those, but the new ones can fly in. We've had them here for a number of years, and over the last couple of years, our friends to the west and south are now starting to complain about having to move into the area. They're here to stay, but luckily their effect is starting to loosen them out. Traps work well if you want to bring them in. Unfortunately, they will come in, so that's one of those mixed blessing things. You know, some bugs are helpful. Good example, this little one right here on a yellow flower. This is a soldier bug. He's actually eating aphids, so he's a good bug. So we have several of these that actually work in our favor. The challenge with spraying is it kills both the good ones and the bad ones, as they are not selective. Another challenge we have, particularly on wet, humid conditions, are fungal problems. This is a picture of the septoria leaf blight on a tomato plant. What happens is these are spores that bounce off the ground and land on the plant. They begin forming colonies. You'll see these black spots. They tend to grow, they go yellowish. I've seen plants die in 2-3 days after getting this. So if you start seeing a few of these on the bottom of the plant, pull those leaves off so they aren't spreading. A big suggestion is use some fungicides early, mid to late June, before they get a real strong part. Trying to kill them after they're started are a real challenge. To prevent a lot of problems, go with ground watering. Just water the bottom of the plants. That'll keep the rest of the plant protected. But there is certainly a payoff all the time effort that you're looking at. You got some great beauty to look at, lots of produce, so you can do these things. Plus, it's an opportunity to get the next generation involved. So keep in mind, gardening is a family production. It's a good way to get the young people involved. ISU Extension is certainly available with a lot of pamphlets and on call. Our number at the Trappola office is 319-882-4275. And we'd be happy to consult with you and maybe look at yours if you have questions or problems. One of the things you can also do for the following year is putting in cover crops. These are some at the Waverly Garden. We put in oats, and the cover crop serves to hold the soil in place, but also captures some nutrients that otherwise might be washing through. These oats works well for us there because it does not overwinter, and next spring we just go ahead and plant right into it. So that's a good opening idea about your 2020 garden. If you have any questions, certainly feel to contact us at the office in Trappola, either email or voice. So we're helping make a difference for strong Iowans. This is Ron Lenth with Bremer Iowa State University Extension. Thank you and have a good luck with your garden in 2020.